Baja Bound makes it easy to get the coverage you need in just a few clicks. Thank you, Baja Bound, for keeping us safe.
Olas Media. I think there's this sense of freedom. Baja is a land that is so yet to be discovered. I mean, it is a peninsula where you have two large, a big metropolis at the very north part of it. But to me, the real Baja starts, the adventure of Baja starts, sort of south of Ensenada. That's the allure, that captures the allure of Baja, is that sense of freedom, I would say.
The idea of doing this podcast is that not everybody has to live at the border to be a border master.
Olas Media presents Border Masters, the podcast where the U.S.-Mexico border takes center stage.
Gustavo is from Nogales. He has amazing credentials. So he's super knowledgeable of everything border, but we come from very different borders.
Monique is very good on the emotional intelligence. It's the personality that she has that allows people just to feel relaxed. It's part of letting the world know why has it been so successful to have that border and what has inspired them about the border.
Now here are your hosts, Gustavo and Monique.
Welcome to Border Masters, the podcast of border leaders. I'm Gustavo de la Fuente, co-host, and I'm here with Border Masters co-host Monique Casellas. Today, I'm very excited to have an incredible guest, Hank Morton, founder and CEO of Baja Bound Insurance. Thank you so much, Hank, for joining us.
Thank you, Gustavo. It's great to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
An often overlooked aspect of travel to Mexico by land is car insurance. Most people think that their U.S. insurance automatically covers them in Mexico, or they simply don't think about it, period. Baja Bound Insurance has worked with U.S. individuals and families over the last 30 years. The company is unique in that it was the first one to offer online insurance services back in 1999, and it was our guest, Hank Morton, who was behind this innovation. Since then, the company has grown to become the premier car insurance company along the U.S.-Mexico border. Hank is an entrepreneur at heart. He's a true border guy, having straddled the border for his entire life, starting when he went on surfing and fishing trips across the border as a child. So I've known Hank for the last 6 years. We're friends. He became a Smart Border Coalition board member when I was the organization's director. I could tell from the beginning that he was going to be very active and opinionated. And after all, I mean, if anyone understands the day-to-day border crossing dynamic, it's Hank Morton. So Monique, how did you meet Hank?
Well, I think I met Hank thanks to you with the Smart Border Coalition. But I'm always in awe when I meet like an American citizen, like a true gringo, as we say it with love, that loves Mexico and Baja. Like, I think even me being from Tijuana and knowing San Diego, but now that I have been living here in the U.S. for 12 years and now being in San Diego for 7 years, and I keep meeting these people that like know Mexico very well and love Mexico and love Baja like you, I'm always in awe. And that makes me wonder, like, where did your love from Baja and Mexico started for you?
Right. Well, thank you for that question. And actually, I just want to touch on the fact that there are a lot of us gringos that love Mexico. And I speak for, myself and all of our thousands and thousands of clients, personally, and not just, I know that there's a lot of Americans who are, for instance, from this region, or just, they love traveling to Mexico. They love going southbound, going and discovering Baja. And, so that probably also goes into my story of how I grew to love Baja. I'm from here, as Gustavo mentioned. I'm born and raised in San Diego. And Baja and Mexico has always been part of my life because I'm a, San Dieguino, and it is we're all in this one big region. So to me, it's just the same as walking at your, it's just going to your neighbor's house. It's like going to Tijuana, no? And so I've just grown loving it, especially for Baja, for the adventure. It's always represented adventure to me. I think that's what it represents to a lot of folks. It represents, obviously great food, great people, but I think more than anything, it represents discovery, to discover something new. It's this amazing resource that you literally have right next door to you, that you can cross this imaginary line, which is the U.S.-Mexico border, and you enter into a whole new world.
I love it.
Right away. And, a lot of folks from Mexico, they understand that, but going north.
Yes.
But there's plenty of Americans, or I should say, I use that word loosely, right?
Yeah.
Let's call it, for
Residents.
lack of better words, or sort of, I like the term, I don't mind the term gringo. No?
Yeah.
It's like that's what we are to some degree. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's plenty of folks like me that love south, love to go south. So,
I love it.
yeah.
Love it.
Well, Hank, you were saying that this is a sort of a discovery thing for people. Do you find that in your business, people come down to Mexico and say, well, I want to discover, I want to do something new, I want the adventure. What is it about it? Getting a little bit more into the weeds. What is it about it that people love, that people like to do? When they hear the border and Rosarito and Tijuana and Ensenada, what attracts them the most, do you think?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I would break it down into sort of, I would say sort of more top line things, which are obviously the things that Mexico and Baja offers them, which is, I mentioned, the great food and the hospitality, and those are sort of the features. But as I say, I think below that, I think there's this sense of freedom in Baja that it gives you, especially Baja. No, it's like it's not. Baja is a land that is so yet to be discovered, right? I mean, and literally, it is a peninsula where you have two large, a big metropolis at the very north part of it, and then basically, and then some
not
population.
A lot of between.
Yeah, and not a lot between.
Right.
So, that's always, by the way, to me, I love the city part of Baja, Tijuana, Rosarito, Ensenada. But to me, the real Baja starts like the adventure of Baja starts, sort of south of Ensenada.
See.
Okay.
Because that's where it's just the wide open desert and the beautiful terrain and the untouched ocean, relatively. So you go and you find, as a surfer, right? There's all these unknown surf spots. Now they're obviously been discovered, but it's harder to get to those.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
And I think that's the allure that captures the allure of Baja, is that sense of freedom, I would say.
And with all this exploring and discovering, is that how you stumble into this business of Baja Bound Insurance? Or like, how was it because you were there and then were like you got in trouble and then you're like, oh, I need insurance? Yeah. Or how did that happen?
Yeah. So I'm going to try to make this short. I'll give you my whole sort of creation story of Baja Bound, which was... so technically, my dad was a doctor. He had a clinic 4 exits north of the border his whole career. And sort of later on in his career, and it was right off the I-5, this clinic. And later on in his career, he had some friends that were in the Mexican insurance business. And of course, we had always had to buy this, going southbound. That was one of the things that you needed to do. Like you actually, your U.S. insurance doesn't work, and we can get to this. But it's something you need to do. You have to buy your Mexican insurance. And so we knew about this, and he had this idea. Okay, hey, I'm gonna create a little agency out of my clinic. He got his nurse licensed. To sell insurance, and he had this little drive-through for probably, I don't know, maybe 4 years, and then he retired. So he shut that down, but he came up with the name Baja Bound. And then at that time, I had recently graduated from college. I was working for a biotech company, and I spoke a little Spanish. I speak much more now.
Hablas muy bien.
Well, at that time, I definitely bluffed my way into this role.
Okay.
But they said, hey, they had these commercial trials happening in Baja, Mexico, and they would send me down to work down in these commercial trials. So, I was cruising around for probably 2 or 3 years during this time, and I was crossing a lot. And then that company actually had there was a startup, and I could see the writing on the wall. I needed to kind of change my position or look for other opportunities. Mm-hmm. And so this was in 1999. Everybody at that time, this was the dawn of really the internet as we know it. It was kind of what we call version 1.0, right? Mm-hmm. And so I knew about what my dad had done with Baja Bound, and I was like, hey, maybe this is something that could be done online, right?
Right.
So we said, okay. So I was like, well, and also I wanted to learn how to program websites too. This was like anyways, I was trying to figure out what my next steps in my life were.
But that's
basically.
not your undergrad.
No, it was not what I studied in college whatsoever.
This is your technological side, which we'll get into as well.
Yes.
This is a very important part of what you do.
So this is kind of the origin story of Baja Bound. And so I did this, really did learn how to program websites, and I launched Baja Bound, and then I really got into obviously the insurance side of it, and we can talk more about that in a second, but that's how I started it, was doing that, and just knowing, because it was a product that we had to get all the time.
An opportunity.
It was an opportunity. And you know what? Honestly, it was something in an area that I love. I've always loved going to Mexico. I've always loved Mexico and Baja. And so it was like, wow, what a cool little opportunity. Let's see if this could work.
Well, you've answered a question I was going to ask you, which was, what insurance is not exactly the sexiest industry out there, but now you've answered the question why you were actually doing it.
Absolutely, yeah. I would like to say, it's funny. Our insurance it's fun insurance, because it's not. Yes, it is something you need to get, but it's also something that people are getting when they're in the process of going to have fun, doing something fun. So it also has to do with how we've marketed our insurance. We market it as a sort of a lifestyle. I mean, it's something that you got to get it, but you're going to get it because you're going to go and have this opportunity to explore this amazing place, which is Baja in Mexico, and you're about to have an adventure, right? And we live that, personally, I live it. Our company lives it, and anyways, so it's a little different than Geico.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
And you talked about your clients. So one question that comes to mind is, how many clients? I'm curious. You said like all of these gringos that are going southbound. So how many clients? That's question one.
Yeah.
And second, are there any favorite spots that you and your clients have?
So we currently work with approximately 60,000 clients every year, and so what they're doing south, they're, like I say, exploring Baja. You name it. I mean, we work with adventurers. We work with expats. A lot of folks that live down there, right? So those are a lot of our clients. Basically, our insurance works we can insure foreign plates in Mexico, meaning U.S. or Canadian or whatever. We insure European plates. People bring their vehicles over, and they're like, "Yeah, I have some interesting German vehicle, like some big SUV type vehicle, Jeep type vehicle." Like, okay, let's see if we can insure that. And it's got German plates, and they're in Mexico. So it just runs the gamut of the type of adventures people are, or what they're doing in Mexico. Yeah.
Now, you've got a lot of stuff on your website. I mean, when you go to the website, it's not just about, get your insurance, right? Which is a practical thing, and, you should be able to get it very easily. But you've got things like adventures in Baja, wine country, hotel guides, vacation rentals, pet-friendly homes. I mean, you've got it all there. And, why have you felt this great need to do that?
So, I kind of touched on this. I think that obviously our main business is insurance, but our real core mission with Baja Bound is helping people across the border.
I love that.
That is our
That's
true higher calling, you
Yes,
know? And
yes.
so we, from the very beginning, we felt, I felt, hey, we need to help people. A lot of the insurance, insurance is just one thing on someone's list. Hey, how do you cross the border? So giving them the right information. There's a lot of, and even back in the early days, especially back in the early days, there's a lot of disinformation out there, right? Online. Something we battle with all the time, or just misunderstandings. And so we always spend a lot of time working on developing content around how to cross the border, what you need, requirements, what are the latest things happening at the border with both U.S. officials and Mexican officials. So it's a super important part of what we do is conveying that information.
Yeah, giving information.
You know.
I think that's super interesting.
And then the other side of it is the travel piece. What can you do down there? So, we have this interesting, it's a Baja, it's a bulletin we send out. It's a monthly newsletter that we send out with writers that are writing about interesting parts, interesting, places or events or people in Baja. And so we really maintain that. We try to keep developing content for people to read about that and the cultural side.
I love that. Can I go back to? I love the story about your dad being a doctor and being down closer to the border. And now it's so funny because, again, as a border girl, I remember crossing the border every weekend. It was for me, and just, I went to the post office and the bank and then Broadway, and that now is Macy's. Yeah. And so, but now that you're saying that, I do see, back in San Isidro, all these little shops that says Mexican insurance.
Yes.
And I never understood what that was. So now I get it. But did your dad had a lot of Mexican patients, or what was his population?
He did, but also I want to say, just my parents were incredibly multicultural. I attribute a lot of my passion for Mexico and for just exploring the world to my parents. They instilled that in us at a very early age. They were big. Passionate about, especially Mexico. They had a lot of Mexican friends. And so I grew up in that world. And, my dad is also puro gringo like me, obviously. But, I mean, he speaks Spanish. He's a very interesting guy. My dad is certainly a character.
He's a character.
I love that.
Yeah. So,
Well, one of the things that when we were talking about Mexicans or U.S. people traveling into Mexico, there's a lot of things that they may not know, and they might learn from your website and all that. But there's also this situation that happens sometimes when people get in accidents in Mexico, and what do they need to do? That process, sometimes people don't know. They're used to doing it the U.S. way, but in Mexico it might be different. There might be a situation where, Mexican police officers show up at the scene, and how do you handle those situations?
Yeah.
And how, I'm sure there's a lot of questions you need to ask of the people who are, going down to Mexico, but mainly it's them asking questions to you, saying, what do I do in this situation? Who do I call?
Right, exactly. And so now you're just kind of identifying literally my day-to-day existence experiences. Is basically helping people in these when you really need to use the insurance, right? Which is when you have an accident. Yes, the system is different. Obviously, it's different, but it's not at the same time. There's a lot of similarities and a lot of the same types of laws exist. There are, as I say, there are differences. We're technically a broker, right? We work with large multinational companies in Mexico.
Okay.
And they're the ones that are ultimately responsible for paying the claims and handling the claims. However, we're very involved. And that's a big distinction that we have against maybe some of the other folks that are working on the border. As sort of the largest provider for our companies, we know all the claim staff. We know, I mean, I'm personal friends with the CEOs of both of our companies that we represent. And, you know, we really push them to always work on their service as we push ourselves to enhance our, you know, to perform our service better. We're always seeking ways where we can make the process better and more efficient. And so that's a lot of it, is knowing the system, knowing the insurance companies, and also knowing the governmental system, right?
Yeah.
The Ministerio Públicos and the claims adjusters. And so now with 25 years of experience, you know,
Wow.
we know a lot of those people too, and so we know how to work with them. And again, every situation is different. There's always something new in my business, and it's like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. And something comes up, and you know, I get my team together. I'm like, how are we going to solve this? This is an interesting one, you know. So, but we work really hard, and we always try to go above and beyond when we can. You know, really push, especially on the claims, because that's when it counts.
Let's take a quick break from the conversation. You're listening to Border Masters. We will be right back.
Hey, it's Daniel from Beyond the Doors. We're super excited to be a part of the Olas Media Network, recording right here in San Diego, alongside some amazing podcasts. There's a host of wonderful shows from all types of genres. For the true San Diegan who wants to know more about local officials and their journey to success, there's Dear San Diego with my good friend, Tony Monolatos. Basically, like real estate, there's a little something for all walks of life. You won't want to miss it. So head over to olasmedia.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to follow or subscribe while you're there. Now, let's get back to the show.
Border Masters is back. Let's get to Gustavo and Monique.
And Hank, it's so funny because also, again, as a Mexican now living in San Diego, I didn't know that I needed Mexican insurance.
Right.
And actually that happened, as you know,
Yeah.
Many Mexicans, they have either dual nationality
Right.
or there are many Mexicans that are residents here in San Diego. And I don't think everybody knows that. They think, oh, I'm Mexico, I know Mexico, I'm perfect. But they it's because of the American license plates, right?
Right.
And so that happened to a friend of mine. She went to Mexico, like where all her family is. And she got into an accident at the Sentry Lane. That is like, you know, you're fighting to get into the lane.
Yeah, exactly.
And
yeah.
that's how she found that she needed insurance.
Yes.
So
Yes.
walk me through the process of, so before I go there, do I just like connect to your website and just like click a button and I have it? Or how does,
Yeah.
like, I'm there.
Right.
What do I do?
Okay, so first of all, you address something that's probably the biggest myth, right? That people have, or misconception, is that their U.S. insurance covers them in Mexico, which it does not.
Wow.
Okay, it can cover certain things. Okay. But the main thing, for instance, your liability when you're driving and you hit somebody else, if you're in Mexico, that U.S. insurance contract isn't valid in the Republic of Mexico legally. So that's the one thing. And people think that they're U.S. and even the brokers here, the agencies, they say, "Oh yeah, you're covered." You know, because they think, under the letter of our insurance law, it's covered, but they don't know the Mexican law. So that's one thing. And then in regards to getting the insurance, you know, what's neat and what we've worked 25 years doing is to try to make this process as easy as possible. So really just with your information on your driver's license, you know, your VIN, the vehicle identification number, basically that's all you need to get insurance. The process is maybe 5 minutes online if you have all that paperwork. If you have trouble, you can always call us, but we've tried to make the process as easy as possible. So that's really, and you know, it used to be sold at kiosks at the border. We said, hey, you know, the original idea behind Baja Bound was, hey, avoid the hassle of stopping at the border. You can just do it online.
It's a brilliant idea.
So-
I love that you thought of it.
Thank you. Well, now the entire industry is really online. There are kiosks still at the border, but really most of the Mexican insurance.
But you started it all, and I understand that it's not just your typical car. I mean, you do campers and ATVs and all kinds of things, right? Even
Absolutely.
boats. I don't know if you've done boats.
We do boats. We do. So yeah, a lot of it's. We try to cater to whatever people are using to go explore Baja. So nowadays it's a lot of sprinter. We do a lot of these sprinter vans, like folks that are living out of they're digital nomads, for instance. I think it's really amazing, and they have these amazing sprinter vans or camper vans. These that are just these vehicles that are suitable to go anywhere in the world. Like they're like total off-road. Amazing pieces of machinery, and we're like, okay, let's figure out how to cover these things. But yeah, it's and now we've recently actually launched homeowners insurance to address the trend of folks that are buying and renting in Baja.
That's smart.
And because there's more and more of our market, that are living expatriate market that's moving down. And living down there.
And that trend, I think, is just going to continue.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's no question, based on the expense it takes to live here in the Southern California area.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
And Hank, we're having like a love fest of like, ooh, we all love Baja and all the gringos that go, the 6,000 gringos that go or more.
Yeah.
However, I have met a lot of people that are dying to go. They want to go to the wine country. They want to go to Valle. Very close people to me but they are afraid of going to Mexico.
Yes. Yeah.
And they are like, oh, I would go to Mexico City, but not to Baja or not to Tijuana. So what are the biggest myths? What are like the things that and even me now, like even people again from Mexico that now we live in San Diego, is like, oh my goodness, and which is the road that I take and going back? We get a little more anxious because of like everything you hear, the insecurities and the driving and just like getting lost. What are some of the myths that you have heard and that you will say in this program to all of our listeners? Like, this is just a myth, and some of the things that you're like, yes, this is something you do need to be aware of.
Right. The way obviously this is a big question that you're asking is, the perception of security in Mexico, right? And it's probably our most, the biggest, the perceptions around this is the biggest battle that we fight in our business. And honestly, I without getting too much into it, what I usually say in terms of just general feelings of security, I take it from my very empirical point of view, which is I tell people about sort of the types of claims that we get, right? So that's really interesting because it's a really empirical metric that is, we insure against theft, for instance. We insure against collision. Those are some of the two biggest risks that we insure against. And the biggest risk that we have is not theft. Theft is actually very little. It's collision.
Okay.
So what that tells you is that actually, people's perception about, oh gosh, I'm going to drive down and they're going to rob me, or I don't want to delve into all these stereotypes, right?
Sí.
But I can just tell you my metrics, which is I don't see that.
Okay.
And I don't hear that from my customers either.
Okay.
Yeah, I see.
So I can tell you, if you're afraid to go, talk to people that do go and ask them their opinion. Do they feel safe in Baja? I can tell you they'll say yes.
Okay.
They feel safe. So again, it really depends on where you are, where you're going. No, I mean, like everywhere. No?
Exactly.
So yeah, that's the security thing. And I was going to touch on, I think the other big friction point with traveling in Mexico is the whole other side. Let's not talk about, the bad ones, the mafia and stuff like that. But like just general issues with driving in Tijuana.
See, it's pricey
I
right
think
now.
that is
Wow.
almost equally a friction point, and figuring out how to get into the border line and then crossing the
We've
border
talked about
line.
this many times.
And I think Gustavo and I know very well, and we've been working on this issue now for years, you more than me. And, obviously that's a huge friction point. So that's another side of things that, needs to be worked on. And it's something that can be worked on, I think, by us here in the, in working on these issues with our governments. Another myth I would say is about, a lot of Americans think either, some people, and I hate this about it, but some people think, oh, there are no laws in Mexico, or the laws don't apply to them, right?
Yes.
So that's a myth, right?
See.
And this is they expect all this. People are I hate to say it, but there definitely is sometimes an entitlement of the way the system should work, and it should work just like it works in the States. And in Mexico there is a system. It is a system of laws. It does work in many ways, but people have to adapt. And people have to understand that they are in a foreign country, and that they will have a good outcome, but they just have to understand that there are that they have to work in the system in which they are currently present.
That's so
Right?
smart.
So,
Yes.
that's another big myth that we have to always fight against.
Hank, let's talk a little bit about non-business activities that you do. I mean, there's a lot of community building, I understand. There's events that you sponsor. I mean, what has happened over the years with that? Is that continuing? Is that intensifying?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, it goes along with our whole mission to help people cross the border and, make it interesting for them to cross the border. So if there's events that are promoting Baja, we love to be involved. If there are civic organizations that are helping people cross the border, for instance, the Smart Border Coalition, for instance, people that are actively working on making our region better, we want to be involved. And so, we're heavily involved in events down in Baja. Obviously, we're really heavily involved into the off-roading world. For instance, we sponsor teams, and we're and a lot of the best competitors in the off-road events, they're friends and they're customers, and they're and we sponsor them. We work with the surfers. We work with all the different activities that that engage people to come to Baja. Right?
Yeah, all the fun stuff. I
the fun
love that.
stuff, because again, Baja is fun.
That's the adventure side that you were talking about.
What we sell is, especially for our market, they're going down to have fun. We were talking about before we started the podcast about my adventure. I just did part of the Baja Divide in southern Baja, the Cape Loop. And I love exploring that side of Baja. And so I'm really excited to do more of that. But yeah.
And so favorite biking spot would be like that loop?
Well, and my story about that is, I'm a pretty fanatical cyclist. I love biking. If it's got pedals, I love it. Mountain biking, road biking. But I got into biking because we started sponsoring the famous Rosarito to Ensenada bike ride.
Right,
I love
right.
it.
Which you guys are familiar with.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
And it's been one of the biggest bike events really in this part of the world. Like, it's huge. And so we sponsored that for many, many years. And so that's how I got into biking, actually, was riding bikes in Baja. And then it grew into just riding anywhere. I bike all over the place. So
I love it.
yeah.
We will need to invite
Yes.
him next time to about that.
Yeah.
And like favorite surfing spot?
Well, you're not, as a surfer, you're not supposed to give away all the secrets.
Well, one that
Well,
everybody
one
knows.
or two that are interesting.
I mean, I grew up, another part of the creation story. I grew up camping. We would take these camping trips down to the famous surf spot of Scorpion Bay, San Juanico,
Okay.
which is in Baja Sur.
Okay.
And that's really probably that was how I formed a passion for Baja was doing those camping trips with my friends, and my dad would take us down, my dad and some of his friends, and we'd do these, weeks-long camping trips in the summer in places like San Juanico. So, yeah, I would say that's probably my
Hank, I know we're getting close down to the wire, but I wanted to get back to technology. We had talked about your kind of dabbling in technology from a pretty young age. So where is technology taking insurance, especially your kind of insurance nowadays? And where is that going, you think?
I think there's a lot of tools, for instance, using algorithms and AI to try to make the products better, to try to specialize, figure out how to estimate risk and things like that. There's all sorts of new tools that are coming in that are hopefully making insurance more efficient and more cost effective, so that it's more precise in a way, right? It is interesting with the Mexican insurance. I feel like because we operate in this sort of niche of a market. I have a lot of leeway to experiment and try new things, and our companies are very open to that. And so we're always looking for ways to improve the product, the insurance, to make using data. Or actually listening to our customers and hearing the things that they're going through and what they need. And so there's a lot of that. And if we can use technology, we've always been a technology first company. So we've always been super excited about, using technology to solve a problem.
Hank, we could be here forever, but and it has been so fast. Oh my goodness. But one question. So this program is called Border Masters, and there's obvious reasons why you were invited. You are a true Border Masters. But when you hear the term and the name, what do you think? What comes to mind?
Well, it's funny. I was thinking about this. In a lot of ways, I feel like a border student because I want to learn about the border. I want to keep always understanding more so I can pass that information to my friends and my clients. And, I'm always seeking knowledge. So I don't feel like I'm a master of anything. I might know a little bit more about the border than other people, but I have a lot to learn, So I've always felt like that way.
For us, you're a master.
Yes, you are, for sure. So before the episode ends, Hank, is there anything you'd like to share with our audience? Anything related to Baja Bound Insurance? How people get to your website? How they get informed about you?
Well, yeah, I mean, regarding Baja Bound, I think obviously we're online. If people want to find out more about Baja Bound, they can just Google Baja Bound or bajabound.com is our URL. And we're happy to talk. We have our phone number listed on the site. If people want to call us and ask us questions, we're always around. I have an amazing team who are super super capable and full of. I try to pass on all the information I learned to them. They themselves are out researching things for me too. So we're always looking for better ways to help people cross the border. And then the other final word is I'm so grateful for what you guys are doing. So
thank you.
I'm all about shedding light on the border and understanding how to help people cross, how to help bridge borders. Right? And I think you guys are doing a great job doing that. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Hank. And thank you so much for everything.
Thank you very much, Hank. So, Monique, I really liked that interview with Hank. When he started talking about the sense of adventure for his customers, his clients, I didn't really think he was going to talk too much about that. I mean, when he mentioned, it's the freedom these people have. It's the adventure that they're looking for, and that's why they look for our services. But it was amazing to hear that.
He's such a good guy. I know that I have met him before, and I love that he can be all corporate because I have met him in more in an academic corporate setting, and he was very serious, very determined.
Yes, he is.
Very businesslike. But also, like, now, he was just like this very San Diegan, very like good vibes, so relaxed. So, but he knows what he's doing. So I love the balance that he transmit of I can do business and you can trust me because he has done it. Like he told us before the episode that he has gone through the Baja by himself biking, which is just amazing.
Yes.
But
he's lived it. He's done the experience. And I mean, he does it every year, every couple of months. I mean, he does something over there. And that's part of when he was talking about how they inform. I mean, it's not just about selling insurance, but it's how they inform people as to what to do, how to do things in Baja. I think that's phenomenal too, because you don't see that very much coming out of companies.
Yeah, and you talked about like adventure, freedom, and he also said discovery, which I love. And I remember there was like this slogan, I don't know if it was from tourism, but it was like this slogan that it was like Discover Baja.
Yes.
And I love that he used it because that's true. It's like a portal, like crossing the border is like a portal to a whole other world. So I really like that he said that.
No, and I think also that he also can get into the details as far as, how do I, if I have trouble in Mexico, if I have a collision, how do I do that? How do I handle that? I mean, they get involved. It's not just like, oh, I sold you the insurance, goodbye. We're really, they're really, into the nitty gritty and getting things, making sure that their clients are getting the service that they want.
Yeah, and I think that also why we had him as a guest is, again, he's another person that sees the border as an opportunity. So I think that all the people that we have had here is because they don't see borders. They see bridges. They see opportunities.
Connections, yes.
Exactly.
And the fact that he's so passionate about what the border has to offer. All his adventurous travelers and clients. So it's I think Hank is a true San Diegan, as you said, somebody who understands kind of the vibes of this region and who lives that, and at the same time he's a great businessman.
Exactly. So shedding the light at the border, sharing some favorite spots. Thank you so much, Hank, for doing this. This is amazing. And thank you, everyone, for listening to our podcast, Border Masters. To tune in to more episodes, go to olasmedia.com or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Remember also, if you have comments, questions, guests, topic suggestions, you can contact us at info@bordermasterpodcast.com. And I'm Monica Sellas, and together with Gustavo de la Fuente, we're so happy to have you here.
This episode of Border Masters fue creado por un Dream Team. JC Polk, nuestro production consultant that supports us con su experiencia y creatividad. Lina Álvarez, nuestra executive producer, siempre al mando. Ulises Bretón, nuestro creative director, bringing the vision to life. Alan González, el audio engineer, que nos hace sonar increíble. Y un agradecimiento especial a Chad Peace, founder y presidente, por ser la inspiración detrás de todo esto. Producido entre la sunny San Diego, California y la vibrant Tijuana, Baja California, Olas Media es parte de IBC Media Group. ¿Quieres más? Check out olasmedia.com para más episodios y el blog del show. Gracias por escucharnos. De parte de Gustavo y Monique, nos vemos la próxima vez.
Olas Media.